During medieval times, there was a myth around dissection that claimed the opening of a body was a dangerous, contaminating, and polluting endeavor, as well as a violation of divine prohibition and forbidden knowledge. I have created this video to explore why we study anatomy via how it has been studied throughout history until present day. I will begin with the periods prior to the 1500s. In Italy, people at this time were invested in funerary rituals, but they did not necessarily extend those rituals onto the integrity of the corpse. In other words, some Italians approved of opening the body as a common funerary practice. It began with post-mortem procedures to examine the physical state of an individual and understand why they had died. The 12th and 13th centuries brought the rise of the study of forensics. We saw the importance of this work through Adriano Prosperi's telling of the woman who claimed that her baby boy had been born dead when in fact the autopsy determined that the boy was murdered with a kitchen knife. In this scenario, the woman was trying to hide her pregnancy in the baby's birth, but more often it is through postmortems that loved ones can find peace and closure through the true cause of death, unless if they find out that the cause was poison. As noted through Catherine Park's article on the criminal and the saintly body, there was also a religious purpose to dissecting those regarded as saints and criminals. Postmortems were performed to check for differences in the anatomy of those that act in the name of God compared to those who act in the name of the devil. For instance, when the first Saint Ignatius was executed and dissected, to the dismay of the executioners, they found the name of Jesus Christ written in letters of gold on his heart. Therefore, the body of St. Ignatius was not only thought to be the avenue to his sanctity, but also a site of signs of sanctity and an instrument of holy power. The preservation of saints' bodies also helped many believe in God and the good that some carry within their anatomical features. On the other hand, when a notorious thief was autopsied, his hairy heart was revealed. Although the practical belief behind the thief's hairy heart was that he had an unusually hot complexion, this example demonstrates how saints' and criminals' bodies could differ physically from one another and that of other people. Moving forward to the 14th century, the study of human anatomy was brought into medicine through dissections that were aimed to illustrate and explicate the human norms discovered through postmortems. Unlike postmortems, dissections either completely or nearly completely disaggregated the body. This practice was used in the teaching of medicine, and it first began in private homes with a master and a small group of disciples. Universities then started to sponsor the study of anatomy, and public dissections were held for 4 days, once or twice a year. These procedures were typically completed on condemned criminals. The goal of dissections altered from discovering the spiritual or physical state of an individual to illustrating the general anatomical and physiological principles to medical students. It became a requirement for a candidate for a degree of Doctor of Medicine to attend at least one dissection in Perugia, Padua, and Florence. The 15th century brought along some changes of its own. Postmortems were being used as preventative measures. For those who could afford a postmortem, they often got one out of fear for the spread of hereditary diseases. The hope was that autopsies could provide the family doctors with all the information possible concerning how to prevent and cure the reason of death. A professor of Pisa recounted the loss of his son as the following: "For to lose one's offspring is hard, harder to lose a son, and hardest to lose him to a disease not yet fully understood by doctors." It is important to note that not everyone was on board with the act of dissections at this time. There was a stigma forming around donating your body to be a cadaver. A 15th century doctor was quoted saying, "May God preserve us from such fate." This stigma did not form solely from the act of opening the body. It formed because it was humiliating to the family to have the corpse laid naked and exposed for an extended period of time. But Park asked in her article, how can we explain the often cited fact that the formal university anatomies were typically performed on corpses of condemned criminals? The population of cadavers consisted of foreigners, criminals, and hospital patients who all find themselves as marginal members of society. They do not have known relatives investing in a conventional and honorable funeral for them, nor do they have the means to guarantee this practice for themselves. So history portrays judicial status as an unequal source of acquired cadavers. The 16th century became known as the century of anatomy. It earned its name through the rise in audience attendance at the formal university dissections. They grew from a mere 20 to 30 people to around 500 at the University of Bologna. The dissections were held in temporary structures of seats and risers in the interior of churches, and then eventually in permanent anatomy theaters. With the increase in height for dissections, the demand for cadavers also grew, so anatomists sought out the bodies of all descriptions: male, female, virgin, sexually experienced, young, old, healthy, sick, starved, and well-fed. An increase in the variety of cadavers allowed for anatomists to explore normal anatomy and develop a sense of range of natural variation. To acquire these cadavers, anatomists and artists turned to the typical sources as well as reached out to smaller local hospitals for donations. Now let's fast forward to the present day, or the 21st century. Microsoft and the Cleveland Clinic have teamed up to launch the study of anatomy through the Microsoft HoloLens. The HoloLens technology creates a 3D image of the human body that appears to float in the air right in front of you, whether you are in the classroom or in the operating room. Rather than attempting to draw this, I'm going to pass it off to the professionals to illustrate this astonishing innovation.
The actual act of dissection hasn't changed in generations. We have to be much, much more effective and efficient.
The biggest thing about medical school is there's just so much information and so much knowledge you're being asked to learn.
HoloLens is going to enable us to teach in an integrated way and to look at the body in ways they haven't been able to see it. It's sort of having X-ray vision, seeing through the skin.
My mind was just kind of blown. When I tried it on, it was perfect. It's really hard to understand what the anatomy and book's trying to tell you. So with the HoloLens, we can literally show you what's happening with the body.
We can look at how the heart moves, or look at how the brain processes information and how information flows around in our brain.
They can see when the heart valves are closing and hear the sounds.
How the diaphragm moves, when the lungs move. A click of the fingers is going to allow students to see how everything's interconnected in the body.
Despite how far technology has come, Dr. Straight reminded me of the limitations that technology faces when studying anatomy.
Technology can be a useful supplement for dissection, but it is not a replacement. Technology which will give you one presentation of what the body is.
Yeah.
I think we abandon dissection-based anatomy at our peril in terms of training medical professionals.
In closing, the study of anatomy has not only improved our understanding of our bodies, but has also improved the training of doctors, who go on to improve healthcare treatments. Although cadavers have had a heavy stigma surrounding them, they continue to be a rite of passage for those studying to become doctors. As technology continues to improve, new ways to explore and learn anatomy can also improve to supplement the cadavers. The Microsoft HoloLens is one example of how we can improve the study of anatomy and peer into the holographic model from angles that not even the most experienced surgeons can see. I look forward to seeing how this technology can add to the rich history of studying anatomy.